Hello, everyone in NACVA Nation. Thank you for joining us for this YouTube live event, Tired of Taxes. I am Brien Jones, the Chief Operations Officer and Executive Vice President for the NACVA and the Consultants Training Institute. I am joined by two members of NACVA who hold the Certified Valuation Analyst CVA credential, and I think both of them also hold our Master Analyst in Financial Forensics credential, the MAFF, both of whom hold also the CPA license, who transition their practice from traditional CPA and accounting services to financial consulting, particularly in business valuation and financial litigation. Rebekah Smith and Zach Meyers are going to spend a few moments with us speaking about how they got tired of taxes and how they've transitioned their practice into these consulting services. Hello, Rebekah and Zach.
Hi, Brien.
Hey, Brien.
How are y'all doing today?
Fantastic.
Great.
Yeah. Did you both have a good Memorial Day holiday?
It was lovely. Here in Ohio, we had a lot of sunshine, and we haven't seen that for a while, so we were all pretty happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Zach?
It rained here, but it was all right.
Yeah, we got rain in Utah as well. But thank you for joining us to share with our audience some of the reasons why you move your practice from traditional accounting, particularly taxes, to these consulting areas. So let's just jump into it. Tell us a bit about why and how you got into the CPA profession and some of the things you did initially in your careers before moving into these consulting services. Rebekah?
Sure. So I started my career 20 plus some years ago with a smaller firm in Northwest Ohio in Toledo, and sort of your typical staff person. I did taxes, had a lot of closely held clients who, looked for advice on different things like, should I lease or buy a car? And I can't get my bank statement to reconcile, all the way up to doing audit for them. So I had a very broad experience. I had a partner who is also very involved with NACVA, who started to get me into business valuation pretty early in my career. That led to some opportunities to do some litigation consulting as well. I'm forever grateful to him for giving me that opportunity, because I don't think it's not something that I would have probably found on my own. And so as time progressed, I found that I enjoyed that work more and more. And so sought out more opportunities until about 16 years ago. I moved to my current firm, GBQ, which is in Columbus, Ohio, and shifted to a full-time practice focusing on forensics and litigation support.
Zach?
Yeah, I've been an accountant since I was about 20 years old. I started off as an auditor, did bookkeeping as well. Did that for quite a while, and the firm that I was working for wanted to get into forensic accounting and business valuation, and they started to look at firms to acquire. And I started working as like a lead employee for a firm for a couple of years back in 2011, and started doing business valuation and forensic accounting. And from there, I just got more experience, and as things progressed and the acquisition actually fell through, I just kind of stuck with it, and now I do 100% business valuation and forensic accounting litigation support work.
So how has your practice in valuation and forensics changed over time? I mean, obviously you got into this specialty niche. Maybe talk about that too, how you made that transition, and what were some of those early on engagements that piqued your interest, that convinced you to move more into this area more full time?
Sure. I'll grab that one first, Zach, if you don't care.
Sure.
Zach told me yesterday he'd always do ladies first unless I wanted to kick it to him, so I always appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, so I have some distinct memories of some cases. I think the first employment discrimination case I worked on was very interesting. It was a gender discrimination case, so just from a very personal standpoint. I think one of the other cases that left a real mark on me was a divorce case that I worked on, and during the divorce, the client I had, I just don't think they could see to the other side of it. And they were pretty convinced that despite the fact they were getting what I would say was a sizable sum of money, really thought that they weren't going to be able to live a lifestyle that they would enjoy and that they were never going to be happy again. I saw that client then like probably 12 to 16 months after the divorce, and they gave me a big hug and said they couldn't believe how much happier they were, that things were working out so well, that they so much appreciated our counsel and our confidence in their ability to sort of get through to the other side. And a couple of those types of small moments where you realize that you could use your accounting superpowers for good, if you will, to really solve a really critical, sometimes personal, sometimes very a business problem that's getting in the way from the business being able to move forward and execute on their strategic plan. It's really rewarding. And I get a lot of people who say, oh, I'd be so depressed dealing with people who fight all the time or people that are getting divorced. And I actually prefer to look at the other side of that coin, which is I have the rare privilege and opportunity to help people in a really difficult time, help them move past, what is a very bad point in their personal history or a bad point in their business history. And so I think it was those early victories of sort of seeing how I could use accounting and valuation and forensics to help people get through those problems and be a problem solver that really, really solidified for me that this was the path I wanted to take.
That's a really interesting perspective, particularly in family law litigation, to really look at the positive side of it when it is really a challenging and difficult time generally. But that's pretty interesting. I like that spin on it, actually. You really are working to help people start over afresh and new, although it's painful and hard. But what about you, Zach? What spurred your interest to make this transition?
Well, I didn't have much of a choice in my particular situation. The firm I was working for was acquiring a forensic accounting firm. But after I started doing it and became really interested in it, in particular the divorce side, similar to Rebekah, I was really interested and intrigued in how much help I could be as a consultant. And I think Rebekah said something about helping them determine their strategic next move going forward. Sometimes it's all about just educating your client as to the exposures that they have. And even though they may walk into your office and say, my husband's business is worth billions of dollars, or my wife wants all my money, or some stupid crap like that, I want a low value. You can educate them on what their exposure is. You can perform a business valuation. You can tell them how big of a deal or not big of a deal a valuation is in their situation, because maybe they need to focus on child support or other things like that. And that sort of personal aspect of it really got to me, because you don't get that in audit and you don't get that in tax as much. And I think I kind of fell in love with litigation support in the matrimonial side of it because of that.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So how has your practice changed over time from when you got started in this profession and to now?
I think so when you ask that question, there's two things that really jump out at me. One is technology. It's not that I didn't have computers and we weren't using Excel before, but the sort of term big data that everybody talks about. I mean, that's the fact of the matter, is that the amount of data that we're getting in these cases is so much more than we ever got. So we're using different techniques in terms of data analytics. We're using different software and different programs like IDEA. We're partnering sometimes we have big data inputs. We're partnering with a outsourced third-party partner to enter that data at a rate that's sort of lower than what we could possibly pay a staff person. Plus, from our perspective, our staff's talent isn't best used by entering bank statements. Their talent's best used by analyzing those bank statements. So that lets us move them upstream a little bit. But we're trying to take advantage of all the technology we can to work smarter and not harder. And that technology is sort of coming fast and furious, like RPA, with robotic process automation, where we can give a program hundreds of pages of PDFs and it can read it in. That did not exist, 16 years ago when I started this. I think I spent a lot of time pounding in bank statements into Excel personally. And I think the other thing that's sort of changed from my perspective is where I do business. It used to be that I did business in Central Ohio. It kind of had to be drivable. But anymore with GoToMeetings and, web conferencing like this and email, I work pretty much across the state and across the country a little bit, and I'm not really restricted by, where I can drive to. So that has been a change. Probably that's been a lot more prevalent, I think, in the last 4 to 5 years.
Zach, what's changed for you?
When I first got into this, I was doing a lot more, it was right after the financial collapse, and I was doing a lot of the litigation related to securities and investments and things like that, and asset-backed securities. And I'm doing a lot more divorces now and things like that. But I think to speak to what Rebekah just said, I'm using technology far more often and effectively and efficiently now than I used to. I'm really, I don't like to read a lot. I like to have things read to me. I have things read to me in a weird computer voice all day long sometimes. I like to read and listen to things at the same time, or at least, listen to it so I can pick up on things that I don't pick up on when I read it. And there's a lot of stuff and programs that allow you to do that now. Also, like the video conferencing, I do a lot of video conference calls and things like that. And all the attorneys are doing that, and everybody's really busy. So you kind of have to figure out a way to quickly connect over, the phone or computer. And I'm doing a lot more of those things. I also have a lot of automated processes in my report building that I've been able to capitalize upon as well, that just recently sort of were made available to me.
Mm-hmm. So certainly technology is playing a big role in whether our audience or other professionals throughout all industries really are gravitating to more online tools, software, apps. So technology is certainly a critical factor in working nowadays. But what advice would you give to someone, a CPA, who has maybe been thinking about getting into these services? What would you give advice to their first steps, and someone getting into this, what would be your perspective?
Zach, I'll kick this one to you to let you go first on this.
Well, I would say, put in your time. You probably need to do some taxes and some, forensic or some basic audit type stuff. Don't feel down if you don't do those things. If you put in a couple years of taxes or what have you first, and then obtain a credential, that kind of puts you on a faster track. I know I've seen a lot of experts that jumped right into being an expert and didn't do public accounting at all. And that's always going to leave you kind of open to a little bit of criticism in the courtroom. But if you can get some public accounting under your belt and do just, the basic ins and outs, bookkeeping, audits, taxes first, then get a credential as well. Your CPA is a great credential to have, CVA as well, MAFF, what have you. Obtain those along with some experience, and just kind of take your time. Nobody has to be the best expert in the world, 2 months into it.
Right.
A lot of times you identify some of your talents while you're doing, public accounting and sort of the non-forensic things, non-business valuation things. You learn what you're good at and your core competencies, so that you can kind of guide your career into the right forensic or valuation aspects that may best suit you.
That's great advice. I feel like it's a marathon, not a sprint advice. That's so perfect. There's a couple of things that I think were really critical to my success. So Sam Aldred, if you know him, is an industry speaker who talks a lot about building niches. And one of the things that our firm has adopted, and I realize as I say that this is absolutely a luxury, but if you are part of a firm and you have this ability, or you just have this ability, Sam would tell you that you kind of have to go all in if you really want to build a niche practice. And so I had that ability to, I came to GBQ and they didn't give me tax clients or assurance clients. They allowed me to really focus my efforts and be a dedicated person to building the forensic and dispute advisory niche. Not everybody's got that luxury. So if you don't have that luxury, maybe you're a sole proprietor, I think you have to have a very set plan that you execute on, because what I see happen, and I talk to a lot of people about this who are looking for ideas, is, we just came off of busy season. I understand from my partners, it was a really rough one with the implementation of the new tax law. So from January to April, you've been knee deep in that. So now it's May and you start planning that you're going to launch this practice, and you get your plans together, and maybe by August you start doing some stuff and get some projects, and then before you know it, you're back into tax planning season. So you take your foot off the accelerator again. So I think it requires some real commitment if you really want to build a full-time valuation or forensics or litigation practice. The other thing that was really critical for me, and this kind of touches on what Zach was saying about, you gotta sort of roll up your sleeves and do different kinds of work and get some experience. Attorneys are looking to you to say, well, I'm going to put you on the stand if you're interested in litigation consulting, or even if you're doing regular valuation for, let's say, estate or gift purposes. They've got to make sure that you're going to be able to defend that in front of the IRS if something goes south. So they're looking at you and assessing how good of a witness are you going to be, and how good are you going to be able to defend your opinions. It's also about how great of a report you can write, but presentation skills is a really big deal. So some of the things that I did, because I started pretty early in my career trying to be an expert witness, and so I had an experience against me. So one of the things I did is I got incredibly involved with NACVA. I think, Brien, probably 20 some years ago, you said, what would you like to do here? And I said, whatever you want me to. And I think you took me literally on that, because before I knew it, I was on committees and, eventually running for boards, and got to co-teach with some people, and then eventually got to teach on my own. And all of those things really built up my skill set for getting in front of attorneys and presenting my opinions and being able to do so in a way that was clear and convincing. And then when attorneys said, what are you involved with? I could say, oh, well, I was on these 7 committees for NACVA, and I worked on the standards, this and that project, and I was on this board, and I teach for NACVA. And that obviously led to other opportunities with my state society and with bar associations. And so I built up my CV by being an avid volunteer and basically raising my hand and saying yes to anything that anybody wanted me to do to build up that CV. So you don't necessarily have to build up that experience by, well, I've testified 10 times. If you can point to a really deep industry experience, that goes a really long way.
That's great advice. And to Rebekah's point, there are a lot of opportunities for our members to get involved in the association, volunteering for a board or a committee or a task force project. Similarly, Zach had the same involvement in the organization as a board member, as an instructor, writing articles for various publications. So certainly industry involvement, to Rebekah's point, can boost your credibility when you're looking to get experience. The association has, on the valuation side, but also on the financial litigation side, a series of trainings. If you're interested in getting in the profession, we have a 1-hour webinar introducing the core concepts and bodies of knowledge for business valuation and financial litigation. A free webinar, 1 hour each month, generally free. We also have a 10-hour webinar series, both on business valuation and in financial litigation, where it's a little bit deeper dive into the technical approaches, methodologies, case law, and special purposes for valuation and financial litigation, where if you attend that 10-hour series, you can also earn a Certificate of Education Achievement, a CEA. And then certainly we have the full credentialing programs for the CVA and the math. 40 to 45 hours of training over the body of knowledge, which prepares the candidates for the examinations and or the case study. For the certifications, if you hold the CPA license, you would qualify outright for the CVA. The CPA license does fulfill one of the prerequisites for the MAFF, which is our Master Analyst in Financial Forensics. But if you're interested in either of those specialty areas, like I said, we have an hour training, 10-hour training, the full credentialing program. And if you contact the NACVA, we can certainly work with you to get you registered into either of those that you'd like. But if you email me directly, I'd be happy to give you our 10-hour webinar series at no cost. So if you're interested in getting in this profession and want some great training, CPE that you can use to renew your CPA license, contact me directly and we'll get you registered. Both of you mentioned an area of specialty that you got into initially, family law litigation. What are some other maybe entry, or I wouldn't say entry necessarily, but as someone starting out, family law certainly sounds like a great opportunity for folks who are looking to get into the profession to initially specialize in that area. What might be some other areas you think would be good for a newly credentialed person or someone just getting into these areas?
Yeah, the family law is for some reason that's just an easy entry point. I don't know if it's just because of the number of divorces and just the high need. And I know like a lot of lawyers in our area like to really diversify who they hire as experts so they don't, hire just one expert all the time. But certainly that was a sort of my entry point. And then from there I expanded into commercial litigation cases and a lot of forensics work. The area right now, and it's sort of using a lot of these same skill sets. Data analytics is an area right now, if you're interested sort of in the consulting, that I think uses all of these skills that you get, right? Part of the skills you get getting the CVA is how to look at a business and see how they're doing and make some critical assessments of them. I think the data analytics area is a huge opportunity. I know that's not directly related to valuation, but that is sort of an area that I see along these consulting lines where you're using a lot of these same types of skills that you're learning in these trainings, plus some real technical data analytics skills. But it's mostly about interpreting data, which is really what we do as valuators and litigation specialists. I did some traditional evaluation early on in my career, but that was really driven by the partner that I was working for. So my entry really was family law. Zach, I don't know if you've got a better perspective on that.
Yeah, now I've done the majority of my evaluation work in the family law setting, and I think that helped make me who I am today. But there's unfortunately a lot of divorces, and divorces are not going anywhere anytime soon. So business valuation in a family law setting is going to be it's not going anywhere for a while, and every state is different, and you have to understand your state's laws and case law and things like that. But to what Rebekah said, the data analytics, that touches upon all kinds of different industries. I mean, every single case I get has some sort of data analytics within it now. Oil and gas, energy, royalties, things like that. Patents cases, business interruption sometimes. There's a number of different types of litigation out there that, as throughout history, there's kind of an ebb and flow of regulation, deregulation. You start to see deregulation, then you start to see the cases after the deregulation come out. There's a number of things like that you just kind of have to keep your hand on the pulse of what type of litigation there is available in your state, in your little area, and nationally, and sort of try to stay on top of that, and that will help you get more cases because you're more knowledgeable of what's happening at the time.
And same with on the non-litigation valuation, sort of the non-litigated valuation side of things. I know that there's been a lot of different things that have changed in the regulation over the years where there's been the ebbs and flows. I think the smart practitioners are the ones who take advantage of that and really jump on those opportunities when they come up, when there's any change in the estate laws or any of that type of thing.
Sure. Well, some trending areas that we're seeing here from our headquarters perspective are certainly in succession and exit planning. In fact, I'm not a valuation analyst, but if I were, it probably would be an area that I would look to specialize in. Interestingly, in the last week, yesterday I was shopping for a brand new trailer camper to go camping. Went to the dealership, and this guy was about to buy 3 other dealerships.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just talking to him. He's the owner. And I'm like, well, have you valued those companies? Do you know if they're what they're really worth? Do you even know what your company's worth? And he's like, what, really? That's an industry? And I'm like, yeah, really. And so, I made a referral to one of our members, to this guy at Camping World here in Salt Lake. Similarly, my favorite restaurants, for those of you who are looking to get into the space, go to your favorite restaurant or wherever you're out and about and ask for the owner. If the owner is a baby boomer, he's generally looking to figure out what to do with his practice. And this could be your own favorite places to buy and shop or do retail or visit. That this baby boomer generation and all the businesses that they own, there's a great opportunity. Even your own clients, your tax clients who fall in that demographic would be a great opportunity for you already as a trusted advisor to help those clients think about their succession or their exit. Zach mentioned business interruption, lost profits. It's unfortunate with all the hurricanes and tornadoes and flooding and fires that businesses are impacted by that. And there's business valuation opportunity to help those businesses deal with those losses and claims. Furthermore, personal injury, wrongful death is another area that we're seeing trending right now from a specialty area of practice in both valuation and in litigation. Just a little nugget there. In our last few minutes before we conclude, where do you think the profession is going, Zach, Rebekah?
Well, I mean, I think that Zach's point about divorce isn't going away is absolutely true. So I think that will continue to be strong. I see that our use of technology is going to only expand. I think 15, 20 years ago, we were hired because we were really good at numbers. What we're getting hired for today is that we're being problem solvers and business advisors. And so those soft skills become incredibly important, like your ability to develop relationships, and your ability to present information in a cohesive and clear manner, and your ability to build trust quickly with people. Those are the skills that are going to catapult you forward. I feel like anybody who contacts me, it's sort of an ante that they know that, we're a good firm with a good reputation. So we're going to know what we're doing technically. We have the right credentials. We have the right experience. They're looking for someone who can really consult with them and be an advisor to the team. So we're spending a lot of time at GBQ talking about transforming our workforce into advisors. There's a CPA firm who called Keiko. I can't think of where they're at, but they call themselves advisors who happen to be accountants. And I think that's the way the entire industry is trending. And I don't think that's any different for our valuation or our forensics or litigation areas, is that people are going to be looking to us to be more advisors and consultants versus number crunchers. And then, of course, the expanded use of technology is what's going to give us that capacity to be able to let machines do a little bit more of the number crunching, and then we can be the advisors. And frankly, I'm excited about that. I think the client interfacing and solving problems and consulting, that part is the most exciting and fun part as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's the most rewarding part of your career when you help somebody out. I think with the to your question, Brien, with the rise of self-employment and people running their own businesses, small businesses, I think that divorce is going to continue and probably increase in its prevalence. So I think the majority of states have an equitable distribution, which requires a business valuation to be performed. If you do get divorced and you have a business within your marital estate. So I think the divorce work is going to continue to come along and probably increase. I think the forensic accounting side of it, it's always been pretty strong, but I think it's going to get even stronger here with the technology that's coming out. I'm getting a lot more requests to sort of help with the programming of artificial intelligence, because you have to start from somewhere with those things that are, artificial intelligence is, it's pretty complex, but someone has to program it and tell it what to do and how to process certain situations. So I think those things are going to come along with more persistence. As far as being an advisor, I think that was a good point that Rebekah made. the people that kind of were the sore thumbs that didn't really, I could never get a 10 key down. I was not one of those guys that could do river dance on the 10 key. That's just not me. I was always the guy that looked at the non-numerical side of it in a lot of ways. And I think that those soft skills are going to become more and more important. And those of you that have them may be able to take advantage of them in business valuation and forensic accounting. I know I certainly did myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, Accounting Today magazine, and for those of you who are viewing us, if you Google Accounting Today magazine top 100 survey, annually the Accounting Today surveys the top 100 firms. One of the data surveys that they publish in this annual report are the consulting areas by which they earn most of their revenues. Business valuation, financial litigation, trend always at the top of that list. So it's a growing profession, healthy, stable, lots of areas to specialize, which Rebekah and Zach have touched on, even myself, from what's trending. But if you're interested in getting some continuing education, as I mentioned, an hour, 10 hours, or the full credentialing program, I will extend a free CPE for 10 hours if you email me at brianj1@nacva.com. My hand chicken scratched. Hope you all can read this. But we appreciate you, Rebekah, Zach, for joining us for this YouTube event on Tired of Taxes. And for all of you who joined us, thank you as well. Contact us here at NACVA if we can support you moving your practice into this area. There's a lot of opportunity. You can certainly be successful. It's a lot of hard work, but you can certainly do it. And the association is here to support you with that. So with that, we'll close, and thank you both.
Thank you, Brien.
And we'll hope that all of you who are joining us will join us for an upcoming YouTube event here with the NACVA and our team of members and experts. Have a great Wednesday.
Thank you.
See ya.